My name is Siboney Diaz-Sanchez. I am the Community Engagement Administrator for the Neighborhood and Housing Services Department for the City of San Antonio. Soy la administradora de compromiso de la comunidad para el Departamento de Servicios Vecinales y de Vivienda con la Ciudad de San Antonio. Thank you so much for being here. Gracias por venir hoy. This event was not only possible because of our collaborators, our volunteers, our resources. It's here because of you. Thank you to the people who stayed late to set up this stage. Thank you to the people who loaded up vans, who folded programs, who checked translation equipment batteries, who picked up breakfast tacos. Thank you to everyone who made breakfast tacos. They were here at 8:30. They made 1,000 breakfast tacos, not 7,000. I want to make sure we recognize that and think about what that takes. We are so thankful that you all are here. This is a free community event. It is a free community event because of individuals and organizations that are here on the screen. Thank you to our sponsors for making today possible. We really appreciate you. Reminders, while we have programming in the auditorium until 2 p.m., we also have a resource fair in the cafeteria if you have not been there. We have many beautiful displays brought to you by our sponsors. Thank you. Restrooms are down the hall. They are also listed in the program when you came into the building. Please silence your cell phone if you are in the auditorium. I want to make a special shout out to Sam Houston High School who's hosting us, SAMMinistries. Thank you, Sam Houston High School. Thank you. Thank you especially to Mr. Reese and his students who helped set up the mic, turned on the lights, got the HDMI cord, checked the clickers, all of the things we all know happens, but it's important to recognize people who make it happen. Again, check out the cafeteria. We have a lot of resource fair tables. Today's speakers are listed here. They're also listed on the program. We have programs specific for the auditorium in the back in English and in Spanish. We also are going to have panel discussions. We're starting a little bit later, which I think it works out. We will have a panel on housing and us, innovative housing, and then we will have discussion and closing remarks by Nikki Johnson, who is a San Antonio Housing Commissioner. And in your program, she is not listed, but I want to make sure we're noting this verbally. Panel 1, Panel 2, this is all in your program when you came in. And let's get started. I know we're running a little bit late. I have the pleasure of introducing Veronica Garcia. Veronica Garcia is the Director of Neighborhood and Housing Services for the City of San Antonio. She oversees federal grant administration and monitoring, development, affordable housing preservation, and rehabilitation, housing access, housing stability programs, housing policy, and the department's community engagement efforts that you all see here today. The department is responsible for implementing the $150 million housing bond. There is more information on San Antonio's first housing bond in the cafeteria. She has over 17 years with the City of San Antonio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Siboney, for the introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. Welcome to our second annual Housing in San Antonio event. This is such an honor to work with our community, our partners, and our sponsors to make an event like this possible. Thank you for the NHSD team that works with us every single day. You all are creating access to information in a community-centered space about housing. As Siboney mentioned, I am the Director of the Neighborhood and Housing Department. Teams in the department connect individuals, families, and organizations to resources that really help our citizens create access and meet their housing stability needs. Since April 2020, our department has distributed over $240 million in rental assistance throughout our community. Thank you. And there's a big team that is out there today still processing rental assistance application. It is one of our most needed programs. We also have programs that help residents relocate into new affordable housing. We host property tax information sessions to help homeowners lower their property taxes. We also help homeowners with rehab. So we have so many different programs. If you haven't learned about our team, we are in the cafeteria, so please stop by and learn more about how we can help you. Additionally, with many of the partners here today, we have started construction on over 1,500 homes in the cities utilizing the first affordable housing bond. It's, over 1,500 homes, 90% of those are affordable, and almost 1,000 homes in total from our bond today will be families earning less than $24,000 a year. So really making sure that the homes that we are building are diverse and meet the level of need for every single person in our community. Please also make sure to learn more about our efforts to visit the Affordable Housing Bond display that is also in the resource fair, so you can learn about the projects and how you can stay connected. As a department, we coordinate our efforts with the Housing Commission and our 10-year Strategic Housing Implementation Plan, which is our vision to create and preserve affordable homes right here in San Antonio. This SHIP is a living document that prioritizes strategies on how we meet that housing affordable need, and by you being here today, helps make sure that we are being transparent and getting that information out to you. This year, we are also proud to partner and be part of a Dream Week. Dream Week's theme in 2024 is the Compassion Drive. So housing affordability is not just about a cost of living. This is about overall community support. When you have an affordable home, you have the neighborhood around you that helps you be successful every single day. And this event, just like this, helps really emphasize this humanity in the work that we do. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome San Antonio District Councilman for District 2, Jalen McKee-Rodriguez. We are here for your district today. SAMMinistries School, thank you again. Councilman Rodriguez is an advocate for affordable housing access in the community, and we are so thankful for your leadership and helping us deliver the programs and services to every single resident. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you so much, Veronica. My name is Jalen McKee-Rodriguez, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as councilman for our beautiful east side here in District 2. We are so proud and grateful that the Neighborhood Housing Services Department chose the home of the mighty hurricane, San Diego High School, and our east side community for this monumental event. At 23 years old, I first started teaching halfway here at this campus, and this year I've actually gotten the chance to return to the classroom of SAISD, so it feels very special and nostalgic and personal that they're here today. I also want to say thank you to each of you for being here at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. It fills my heart that you're all here, and it's a demonstration that we're all on the same team. District 2 is such a wonderful place to live, filled with important cultural history, significant city landmarks, and people that are resilient and imaginative, you know. And yet much is changing for the east side, specifically related to housing. We know that gentrification has exploded near downtown, and many elders and families are facing difficulty paying taxes on generational homes, and families are finding themselves forced to rent at exorbitant prices instead of owning a home. Today's event is going to connect you with various resources and provide much needed information on the state of housing in our city, and it's all steered by the Strategic Housing Implementation Plan, which you'll hear SHIP a lot. I thought I was hearing something else quite a while when I first got started. A collective effort that serves as a roadmap for the future of housing in our city. We have high but achievable goals to bring about safe, accessible, and affordable housing for all San Antonians. It is so important that we host events like this to return to the community and reflect on the plan that we made together. Are we seeing the progress that we expected? Are there new dynamics that we need to consider? What should be our next steps to reach our goals? And do we need new members? We cannot build resilient and affordable housing without community members, partners, affordable housing developers, and government entities and agencies working together. Whether you are a homeowner, a renter, an affordable housing developer, or a policymaker, we need your help to move into this next stage of our life. Now, for some good and fun news, in District 2, for many years now, I've advocated for a brand new senior center. Many of you are aware, but my goal is to create a state-of-the-art senior center that will include affordable senior housing for something that is severely lacking in our district. So this is something that each of you can keep an eye out for in the future, hopefully as more resources come in. Of course, we haven't learned much about our housing bond today, but as we wrap up, let me share some data specific to District 2, and I'd like to thank Texas Housers for their researches for providing these data sets for us. In District 2, I represent about 143,000 people. Of that, 66,900 renters live in District 2. 51% of all District 2 households. That means the majority of our households. There are 607,500 renters in the city, which is 48% of all households. 1 in 4 District 2 households spend a majority of their income on rent, which exceeds the Met standard no more than 30% of their income spent on rent. Between public housing, tax credit units, and units living using a housing choice voucher, District 2 has more subsidized housing units than any other district. Housing is deeply important to all of San Antonio, of course, but especially right here in District 2. So as you all know, I believe housing is a human right. And whether you are housed or unhoused, you have my commitment to ensure access to affordable housing for all. Again, we're so grateful to have each of you here for an important event like this at our beautiful Summit. We hope you learned a lot, gained valuable insight, are connected to a multitude of resources available today, and that you're able to share your lived experiences. Resources also include my staff member, Denise, who's right over there, so feel free to stop by and say hi. Now I have the privilege, I'd like to introduce our Mayor, Ron Nirenberg, to further welcome me today and thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you for making time to be with us today. Today is a day to account for progress that wouldn't have been made without the support of an entire community behind this goal of ensuring that everyone deserves a safe, affordable, dignified place to call home. I'm excited to be here alongside our affordable housing partners. It includes members from the San Antonio Housing Trust, Hugh Grants, Opportunity Home, the City of San Antonio Neighborhood and Housing Services Department. What a great team we have there. Bexar County, and members of the San Antonio Housing Commission. Today, we are especially honored to be welcomed by HUD Deputy Secretary Adrian Todman, who joins us from the Department of Housing and Urban Development in Washington, D.C. HUD, as you know, has been a key partner in our mission to create thriving and sustainable neighborhoods in San Antonio. 2023, in fact, was a good year for housing affordability in San Antonio and the progress that we're making. Back in March, you may remember we broke ground on the first multifamily housing project funded by the $150 million 2022-2027 housing bond, the very first in the city of San Antonio's history. And we ended the year breaking ground on the 1,000th unit supported by the Affordable Housing Bond. Since 2022, just about a year and a half, we have awarded $81 million in bonds to support a total of 4,300 homes, of which 1,500 are under construction today. In other words, we're creating thousands of new units residents will soon be able to call home. I'm very proud of the progress because this is the first affordable housing bond that our residents approved. That was back in May of 2022. It took a constitutional change for us to do that. And I can confidently say that it is delivering on the promise of serving our residents most in need by producing and preserving affordable, quality housing in San Antonio. These efforts represent investments in our neighborhoods to ensure that people can choose where they want to live or age in place without having to worry about being priced out of their homes in the neighborhoods. Compassionate policy is driving meaningful change in our city and creating the necessary opportunities for our residents to thrive. And that result, again, is the result of hundreds of hours of community meetings, feedback, and ideas stemming from the very first Housing Policy Task Force meeting back in 2017. You may remember back in 2017, I formed Mayor's Housing Policy Task Force and charged them with creating a comprehensive and compassionate housing policy for the city of San Antonio. Since then, we have adopted a strategic housing implementation plan that now serves as the city's guiding document for affordable housing. The SHIP represents a commitment from community partners who have a shared vision to serve families with the highest needs so that every person, no matter their income, no matter their circumstance, no matter when they got here, no matter the challenge, can find a place to call home. The economic security and prosperity of a country at its foundation is based in housing, and that's what we recognize here in San Antonio. This includes actions to create permanent supportive housing, permanently affordable housing with supportive services to help people experiencing chronic homelessness to exit homelessness once and for all. None of this work would have been possible if not for the many partners that we've made along the way, and that includes our partner agencies like Opportunity Home, the Housing Trust, all those that I mentioned before, and most importantly, our residents in our neighborhoods. And so, we're here today to engage with you all. This summit is not just about recognizing progress or celebrating progress, it's also about paving the way for more progress. Your participation and feedback is important to ensure our plans are a reflection of community priorities and remain aligned with the growth of the city. So I want to thank you for being here and sharing your perspective to help make our affordable housing plan one that continues to be driven by community and one that I can say continues to be a model for others. Now, it's my honor to introduce HUD Deputy Secretary Adrian Todman. And I'm going to go through this, and it's an impressive biography, and we're very grateful that she's here. Secretary Todman is the 12th Deputy Secretary of HUD. She's dedicated her career to improving people's lives and strengthening neighborhoods through housing and strong community development. Deputy Secretary Todman served as the CEO of National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials from 2017 to 2021, where she improved financial standing and business operations, the culture, and advocated for funding and policies to preserve and develop affordable housing and to help communities thrive. Before joining, Deputy Secretary Todman served as the Executive Director of the District of Columbia Housing Authority, where she implemented a national award-winning model to house veterans experiencing homelessness, increase home ownership opportunities by 50% for low and moderate income families. Deputy Secretary Todman previously served in several career positions at HUD, first as manager of HUD's $500 million grant competition that focused on the redevelopment of distressed public housing, and then as a policy aide in both the Office of Public and Indian Housing and the Office of the Secretary. Her career in public service began at the office of then Congressman Ron DeLugo, representing the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Secretary Todman was born and raised. Deputy Secretary Todman believes that we have a responsibility to confront housing insecurity, to increase and preserve the nation's housing supply, eliminate housing discrimination, and support community resiliency, particularly following a national disaster. As Deputy Secretary, Todman works alongside Secretary Marshall Fudge to ensure that HUD has the staff and tools it needs to administer and provide oversight over programs critical to supporting people and communities across our country. So please help me give a warm San Antonio welcome to HUD Deputy Secretary Adrian Todman.
I asked the mayor to just stay up here for a couple additional seconds because I wanted to celebrate your leadership, not just here in San Antonio, but also as a model of a mayor who believes in housing and the strength of community development, and a model for mayors across the country. So I'd like to provide you, sir, with just a token of our appreciation. Let's see where she is.
Retired, mate, was just nice. Coming, walk.
Wow. Good morning, San Antonio. Good morning to you. morning. If I was a little bit taller, I could see wall. We are going to make this work, people. We are going to make this work. You know, I have spent my entire career in housing and community development. And so, like many of you here, I think we appreciate that it's not just the data, it's not just about the housing structures, it's not just about the things and the programs we're doing. We are doing all of that for the people. We're doing it for the people we all serve, the people that we believe in, who need a little bit of help every now and then to make their way. We do it for the people. And I believe, and I know that President Biden believes, that everybody in this country deserves a chance to achieve their dreams. We should not be bounded by our zip codes and perhaps what our parents did or did not do. We all deserve a right and the ability to achieve the things that we want to. And over this last decade, leaders in San Antonio have not just stated that shared belief, but you've taken critical steps to make that a reality. And I'm always so blessed when I am engaged in a moment like today, where people have come together from all across the city to say to this community, to say to the East Side, we believe in you. We believe in the possibility of what this community once was and what it will be in the future. And I think that there is leadership at every level in achieving that, whether it is the mayor, all the way to whoever made those breakfast tacos. That's leadership at every level. So thank you all for all the hands that are doing this. You know, as a member of the Biden-Harris administration, we are very proud to serve with you along with this work. And we've been trying to do that from day one here in San Antonio and every place else where there are strong, passionate leaders who believe in their people. And I'd like to say, particularly at HUD, we've been delivering for the people. The Secretary is very proud of the work that we are doing on building wealth. We know that we need to build more housing. We know we need to make sure people have access to everything they need. But she's a firm believer we need to do everything we can to improve the case of generational wealth in this country. And that is why we are so proud that over the past couple of years, we've been able to help 1.5 million first-time homeowners in this country purchase their first home. Even in this difficult housing environment. And we've also done I've been in this housing space for over 30 years. And one of the things that I was so proud of that we've done is increase access to rental assistance. Sometimes people lose a job, something happens with a family member, and you just need that little bit, just that little bit to hold on, right? And we've been able to deploy $50 billion across this country and increase access to vouchers more than ever before, and we're very proud of that effort as well. But let me say this about that. We are not able to deploy our funds without the support, assistance, and leadership of many of you who are here today. We do what we do to fight, make sure we get the resources. But I know, as somebody who worked in local government, that it's really what happens in cities and counties that matters to make sure we're deploying. And I know that this city has done a tremendous job. And I want to thank you for that leadership. One of the things we know as a very critical is we have to build new housing. We saw some of the data that was up here. We need rental assistance, we need to help homeowners, but if there's no home that exists to purchase, if there's no affordable rental units for people to call home, then we've only done half the job. So one of the things that we have done is create an all-of-government approach for housing supply, making sure we are building more rental units and building more homeownership units. And one of the reasons I'm so proud of the work here in San Antonio is I remember years ago when the strategic housing plan was developed. I actually got a copy of it. And I was going through and I said, well, this is a pretty good plan. You know, how can I share this with other cities across the country? In my role, I've been trying to do that. Yesterday, I got here Wednesday evening, Thursday evening, and yesterday I spent my time looking at some of the progress of housing here in San Antonio. I was able to visit the Los Arcos rental site, which is moving along Reyna. Excited to hear that we found who was moving in there very shortly. And I was really excited to see the new home ownership units that Habitat has built with the assistance of Families for Equity, over 300 units of affordable home ownership for first-time homeowners. That's cool first time. You know, HUD has investments in both of those sites, so it was really gratifying to be there. The most gratifying part, though, was going back to the people. I was able to meet a husband and wife who are going to be one of the proud homeowners, and they very proudly showed me through their 3-bedroom home and talked about the dreams that they had for their 2 boys who are 8 and 9 years old, and being able to spend this upcoming Christmas in their new homes. The mom and I agreed exactly where the Christmas tree would go. That's critical. But it was so wonderful. The most important part was just seeing the smile on their faces and the hopefulness that came with this opportunity. I'm a firm believer that as leaders, we need to do everything we can to instill hope. It is a very sad day when you come across people who have lost that hope. So being with this couple and seeing the hope that they had for themselves and for their children, and with this step, their children's children, is why we all do this work. This community here in this side has been infused with elements of hope over the past 10 years. When, during the Obama administration, it was designated as a promise zone, the idea was, how do we make sure this community builds a hope and vision and grows? And I'm excited to see some of the achievements, the new training center that's here. I read about the Herbert Farm, the work that's being done here to revitalize the homes that are here and to build new homes. And HUD is very pleased to be able to really push that work forward with our Choice neighborhood brand. And it's great to be here and see the outcomes of that work. And even though I know that we are here in part to talk about being 10 years in many ways, some of that is just when you all became a promise zone, you owned it. You owned that. And probably more than many other promise zones across the country. And I had an opportunity to meet with some of the leaders here who believe in the work of this promise zone, the work in this community. And I know that we are just beginning the magic that needs to happen. You know, and because I know this is in many ways an ongoing journey, I said to a group earlier, we know that journey needs to be resourced. Hope and dreams don't build housing. Money does. Resources does. Investment does. And those resources don't just show up because you hope it happens. You know, one of the things that the Secretary and I don't know if anybody has ever met Secretary Flood, she's a bad sister, but I've never been the good cop in leadership. Usually there's I'm the bad cop, but she makes things happen. And we fight every single day for the resources we know San Antonio needs and this community needs and has earned. It's one of the reasons why working with the White United, we were able to send about $20 million here to San Antonio from the President's Address funds to support your housing. It's one of the reasons why we were able to send $14 million to help our homeless brothers and sisters and grandparents and friends and children find a place to park their heads. And it's one of the reasons why we continue to find ways to be creative to cut costs to homeownership, because we know that it's a dream of so few people. I will end where I began. where we know the quality response, we know the vision that we have for America in Washington, D.C. can only come true when you all are doing what you do. So in addition to saying thank you for everything you've done for this community and for all of San Antonio, I'm also here to say, keep it going. And we will be there to fund you and support you along the way. Stay blessed. Stay blessed.
For those of you just joining us, my name is Siboney Diaz Sanchez. I'm the Community Engagement Administrator for the Neighborhood and Housing Services Department. Thank you so much. You never really want to follow the Deputy Secretary, but thank you all for bearing with me. I appreciated what you said. We do it for community, and you can only do it for community if you do it with community. So thank you. If you're just joining us, si prefieren la información en español, por favor, levanta la mano y tenemos voluntarios que pueden asistir. También pueden visitar la meseta de la entrada también. Okay, in your programs for today, we had Mark Carmona speaking next. He is not able to be with us this morning, but I do just want to recognize him not only as a mentor, as a friend, as a visionary, as a collaborative leader, as someone who has 30 years of experience in housing and homelessness, human and behavioral health services. He is known for his emotional intelligence, and I just want to recognize him even though he's not here in person. I want to recognize him through voice. So thank you, Mark, for also making today possible. We're really yes. Thank you, Mark. I'm going to ask our Director of the Neighborhood and Housing Services Department to return to the stage to talk about something that's been mentioned in a couple of talking points, the Strategic Housing Implementation Plan. This event is the Strategic Housing Implementation Plan. This is written into a document that is living, that has many strategies, and I'm going to invite Veronica back to the stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So what is the SHIP? Our Strategic Housing Implementation Plan, we keep talking about it. It's really a 10-year plan that just outlines the ways that we can make all types of housing more affordable for every single person here in our city. It was officially adopted by our city council members 2 years ago, and it includes both a family plan and specific strategies. But the very most important part of our plan is that it's done in partnership with the City of San Antonio, the San Antonio Housing Trust, Opportunity Home San Antonio, and Bexar County. It's not just a city plan, it's a community plan. And it truly takes a community-wide effort to have an impact. It is the collective work of all of these organizations, as well as many of our community partners and agencies that carry out the work that's outlined in our SHIP. You can see on the screen we have 5 major SHIP goals, and I just want to highlight a couple of these. The first is a big part of, thanks to you, the voters, it's to increase city investment in housing. And the voters, just over a year and a half ago, as the mayor mentioned, approved $150 million investment in affordable housing through our bond. This money has been invested in projects including building new affordable apartments, building homes for people who are chronically homeless with services on site for them. It includes funding to rehab homes that people already own and that have deferred maintenance, only to increase safety in the homes. And as detailed by the Deputy Secretary, it also includes funding to build new single-family homes for people who will become first-time home buyers. And as she described, we met a couple of those first-time home buyers just yesterday. And it was a couple with their 2 kids, 8 and 9 years old. We had a chance, and the mayor's office had a chance, along with the Deputy Secretary, to speak with that couple, and we asked them, so your kids will be moving in a couple of months, you help build the house, you about painting. What are they most excited about? Having their own yard? Are they most excited about having their own room? Just so you know, this family currently lives in a multi-generational home, and this family of 4, 2 adults, 2 children, is sharing 1 bedroom right now together. They've been sharing that bedroom for a while. And so this is their first time getting into their own home. So my thought is, you gotta be excited they're getting your own room, right? No. These kids, 8 and 9 years old, most excited about having a home and never having to move again. So when we talk about housing affordability, the number of units, all this stuff that's on the screen behind me, really why we're doing this work is to create those new housing stability options for our residents right here in the city. So one of our other strategies is to ensure accountability to the public, and that's really why we're here today. We feel it's important that we share all of this work that's being done, share not just the units, which are important, but the work behind them, the people behind them, the services, and most importantly, the families that we're helping, and all of the partners that are here. We're not doing, as Stephen and I mentioned, we're not doing work for the community, we're doing work with the community. And that's only successful as long as you all know exactly what that work involves and how the work we're doing helps serve you and your neighbors every single day. And our partners are just as committed to that effort as our city team. So we hope you have a chance to talk and engage with some of the 40 organizations that are here at the Resource Fair and learn about what they do and how they can help you, your family, and your friends. At the Resource Fair, you'll be able to engage with our affordable housing partners. We have the San Antonio Food Bank, Ready to Work, that's another shift strategy, not just building homes that are deeply affordable, which is extremely important, but also creating more job training opportunities to help people boost their income so they have even more housing options available for them. We also have our legal aid providers out there helping families who are in eviction situations or have inherited their home and don't quite have that clear title and have questions on how they can really make sure that asset is legally their asset and all that means for their family and that generational wealth. They're here today as well, and many, many more amazing organizations. So we're already in this 10-year plan of housing affordability. Well, the next slide shows that we are 2 years into the 10-year plan, and you can see that working together with our partners, we've really made a lot of progress toward the SHIP goals. Our plan is to not just create new affordable homes, but again, to preserve some of the affordable housing we already have. And today, we are over 30% of the 10-year goal, 2 years in, over 30% of the way towards those units. Yes, that's a whole lot. Ahead of schedule is the takeaway there. So we have completed over 2,600 affordable homes. We have another 3,000 that are under construction and almost 5,000 more affordable homes that are in our pipeline. It means they have funding and they're finishing design, finishing to get to that stage of construction. And again, this work doesn't happen with the City of San Antonio alone. It can only happen through partnerships, and that includes Housing Trust, Opportunity Homes San Antonio, Bexar County, and many, many other organizations in our community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our SHIP partners who are here with us today and recognize all the work that they are doing for each of you. So we can share their work. So I'll first introduce Pete Alanis, the Executive Director of our San Antonio Housing Trust.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Pete Alanis, Executive Director for the San Antonio Housing Trust. Our mission is to create and preserve housing that is affordable, accessible, attainable, and sustainable. Today, we have in construction or placed in service over 12,000 units of affordable housing. So we're very proud of the fact that we're able to partner with our development community to get these projects off the ground. But enough of what we have done. Looking forward to what we're going to do. We are focusing here the next year on purchasing land to be able to preserve future affordable housing in our neighborhoods. It's important to have access to that land because if you don't own the land, you're not able to control what's being built on that land. So land banking is one of our strategies. We're also looking to partner with additional, I see Nikisha Baker over here, with SAMMinistries on some permanent supported housing opportunities around the city. We're also focusing on tenant rights. We recently approved a new tenant protection policy that we are requiring all of our partners to apply. So advanced tenant rights is one of our missions. I think we're doing a great job with that. And finally, we're working on universal design. So what is universal design? Universal design recognizes that we are all different. We are all different ages. We are all different body types. We have all different abilities. We need to build housing that accommodates our various needs and abilities. And universal design is the path forward to creating housing that can accommodate our aging population. So you'll be seeing some opportunities in the future. We want you to come and visit and talk to us about these various programs. We're at table 11, and we look forward to seeing you there. So thank y'all very much, and I'll go ahead and introduce. Let's go with Opportunity Home San Antonio. I'm not right.
Hello, my name is Hinojosa. I am the CEO at Opportunity Home San Antonio. Formerly, we were known as the San Antonio Housing Authority. We provide deeply affordable housing in San Antonio. Today, we house about 20,000 families on what we call income-based housing. Income-based housing means that the amount of rent you pay is based on your income. We do that two ways primarily. One, through our public housing program, and two, through our Section 8 program. And there's a table situated in the area with Opportunity Home individuals. Please feel free when you get a chance to go by and chat with them about the work we do, or if you're interested in getting on our wait list, they can help you with that as well. Today, we have under construction about 2,000 units of public housing and affordable housing. These are being constructed throughout the city, and they'll be coming online in the next year to year and a half. So we're really excited about that. We're excited to be a partner in the SHIP work that's being done by the City of San Antonio. Thank you, Deputy Secretary, for your leadership. Thank you, Pedro, for your leadership. We're excited to be working with the other partners on addressing affordable housing in the City of San Antonio. And with that, I will turn it over to the next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Reyna, and I'm with the Bexar County Economic and Community Development Department. And we are thrilled to partner with the City of San Antonio on the Strategic Housing Implementation Plan. Over the next few years, the county plans to create more than 1,000 units of affordable housing in San Antonio and Bexar County. That includes investments in multifamily housing, single-family housing, permanent supportive housing, and emergency shelter. So moving forward, the county looks forward to working collaboratively with the city to ensure that all residents of San Antonio and Bexar County have access to safe, decent, and affordable housing. Thank you very much.
So thank you again, Bexar County, Opportunity Home San Antonio, and San Antonio Housing Trust. Again, all the partners and organizations that are here today. I'll also take this opportunity to recognize all of the housing commissioners that are here today. They also help ensure accountability to the public and help oversee all of the SHIP strategies and work that we do. And again, thank you all for coming. We have a full day ahead with panelists. Starts at noon, but in the meantime, we have snacks, we have drinks, and there are other resource fairs. And please take a moment to visit some of our large exhibits to hear more about the stories of residents in our community who have benefited from some of our housing programs. Thank you all.
All right, everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for being here, or I guess it's still good morning. As you've heard, we've heard a lot today about housing, and we know that we need a lot more than just a roof over our heads to reach our full potential. So we're about to begin a panel discussion about the things that we can do as people and as organizations to help one another achieve our outcomes. So, a note for the audience, this panel welcomes questions in English or Spanish. There will be comment cards for circulating, so if you have something you'd like to share, you can write it down on the card and give it to TC or Cheryl. They're raising their hands in the back row. Thank you. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for today. His name is Ian Benavides. He's our Deputy Director at NHSD. He's been with the city for 11 years and oversees development and community engagement. Thank you, Ian.
Good morning. Happy to be here. Thank you all for taking time out of your weekends on this beautiful Saturday to be with us and learn a little bit more about what we do as a city and as a community to build and preserve affordable housing. So this session is a little bit unique in that, we've talked about the number of units that we're producing as a community. We've talked about the need for those units within our community to meet the needs that we've identified through the Strategic Housing Implementation Plan. But this particular panel is really focused in on what we kind of refer to as our secret sauce. And that really is the supports and services. Having a roof, having a place to call home is critically important. And it is something that we focus on maybe a little too much as a community, but equally as important, if not more important, I think we'll learn a little bit more about that today through these panel discussions, is the supports and services. These are the supports and services that keep people housed, that bring us together as a community, and these services can include everything from home maintenance, permanent supportive housing for those experiencing homelessness in our community, mental health resources, and social workers that are critical and pivotal to connect people with services in the language and in the way they feel most comfortable. Again, we want this panel to be a conversation, so we'll definitely have our panel members, who I'll introduce here in a second, tell us a little bit about what they do and the amazing work that they do in our community, but we want you all to be able to participate. So if you want to write down any questions that you have for us, you can find Sarah or TC. They'll be raising their hands. You can see TC in the back over there, and you can see Cheryl back there, who will also be able to help take your questions, and Simone right here. So lots of people to help write down your questions and make sure that we as a panel are able to answer them. If we are not able to answer them, hopefully those comment cards will have some contact information so that we can get back to you. We want to make sure that you have the information that you need to be able to move forward. So again, we have this human connection to each other that is vital, right? And we are communicating that through housing and the work that we do as a city. But we're going to be talking about compassion. We're going to be talking about programs and services that make sure that our investment is lasting into the future. So I will go ahead and introduce our amazing panelists. First, we have Lori Hall. Lori Hall is a program officer at the Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC, San Antonio office. Lori is responsible for collective impact activities, capacity building, and technical assistance at more than 25 social and housing nonprofits. Lori has more than 30 years of experience in the field of community development and affordable housing. She has developed single-family housing, managed real estate and home ownership programs, and implemented homeowner-occupied and rental rehabilitation programs. Lori is president of LF Home Consulting and is a train-the-trainer for NeighborWorks America National Training Institutes. She also is a co-author of Keeping the American Dream, 3rd edition. That's a lot of editions going on. And Lori has trained more than 1,000 housing counselors on how to prepare new homeowners and home buyers for long-term sustainability. So everybody please join me in welcoming Lori. Next, I'm going to introduce Nikisha Baker. Nikisha Baker serves as SAMMinistries President and CEO and provides strategic oversight for the ministry efforts that offer housing interventions and support services for nearly 5,000 San Antonians experiencing and facing homelessness. Having served the ministry since 2015 in a number of roles, Nikisha is credited with program growth of over 60% over the last 3 years, including an expansion of permanent supportive housing, which we'll talk a little bit in this panel, as well as targeted programming for victims of domestic violence and youth and younger adults. So join me in welcoming Nikisha Baker. Next we have Liz Cruz. Elizabeth Cruz is currently a licensed social worker in San Antonio. She works as a project manager for our Operation Rebuild program. She is also working as a therapist helping bring healing to families and adjunct at UTSA, training future social workers. She also worked at San Antonio Christian Hope Resource Center, where she developed and implemented a case management model for one of San Antonio's largest food pantries to address food insecurity. She was also responsible for the development and implementation of the homeless prevention program at SAMMinistries in San Antonio. So please join me in welcoming Liz Cruz. And last but not least, we have Eric Estrada, who is the Executive Director of Forum Communities. They operate as a community mental health and workforce development program, such as the San Antonio Clubhouse, Peer Academy, and Peer Force. He has been involved in community mental health since 2014, and prior to his role at Forum Communities, his career was primarily in management consulting, where he advised federal clients on how to perform better. He has also worked as a consultant to small nonprofits, primarily in the process improvement and systems design and marketing fields. So please join me in welcoming Eric Estrada. All right, I'm going to go take a seat real quick, and then we'll continue the conversation. All right. Everybody hear me okay? All right, great. So again, we're really focused on that secret sauce. And that is what goes beyond the exterior of the home, ensuring that we build a good quality home. What is needed for long-term success? And that could be education, support services. And so we really want to kind of dig into the amazing work that we are currently doing in the community to help provide this. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Lori Hall. And Lori, I'm just going to kick us off, big picture. Let's talk a little bit about the handout versus a handout and try to shift our approach as a community. I know you've helped us as a department kind of change our orientation on what it means to build affordable housing and ensure that it's successful back to it.
Good morning, everybody. Maybe afternoon by now. That is one bright spotlight, so if we're splitting it, Judy, that's fine. So I have about 30 years experience in housing and community development. I started my career in the city of San Antonio. My job was to monitor and implement affordable housing. And I must say, regulations, federal regulations, which are attached to tax laws, are not easy to implement. And then there is housing rehab. That isn't easy to implement. Maybe you can do that jobs or your own personal home rehabilitation process. You know you need to start with a marriage counselor. You probably need, you need a good vacuum. Here's what happens. Every year there's this pull and tug when working with a contractor who's trying to make money. There's a homeowner who has high expectations, and there's never a lower cost. It's always rising cost. There's always surprises, and there's lots of dirty dust during the process. So, but rehab by itself is really hard, and then you add in later tax dollars funding that on top of it, it makes it extra hard. And in that process, the city has done a great job of implementing federally funded housing programs, and the city council recently put millions of dollars. They have allocated millions of dollars towards rehabilitated homes, especially those in the inner city. And you can easily forget the homeowner. You are so focused on trying to spend the money collectively. You are so focused on making sure the house is done well that you can forget that there's a homeowner in the process. But what I'm proud to be a part of and what I'd like to see in the Independent Housing Services Department is that they are now bringing that homeowner into the process in a very big world. They have hired social workers, and you're going to hear from Hannah to them. And because rehab specialists, their skill set is to work on the house, is to make sure the house is the best it can do. But in the past, we often relied on them to be the face to the customer as well. I think that's really the skill set. And so we've done the best we could in the past, but unfortunately, we haven't done that good enough job. I can tell you that has changed. There is a new cultural mindset, a shift that has gone on, and your city government to serve in your homeowners and merge theater and better way. I want to tell you a few ways that they make, other than the social workers who are working directly with the homeowners. And keep in mind, our homes are not the only thing that have deferred maintenance. In many cases, sometimes we have deferred maintenance as people, and we need help, right? And so that's what the social workers are doing. They're out there working one-on-one with many of these homeowners who, for lack of access, for lack of opportunity, maybe who have been part of systemic racism and not had any opportunities in it. And so as a result, the social workers work with them to see the programs and services they can connect them to. Meanwhile, their house gets rehabbed. Okay, so now there's all these millions of dollars going into rehab. There's about 5 different programs that are available, and the city has now said, okay, if you are a beneficiary of one of these programs, then you need to take a home maintenance class, a home maintenance workshop. And so I was very proud to work with the city in the creation of a 4-hour free class for homeowners. I can tell you the first time we had a class, the homeowners were kind of looking at us, and all the trainers were kind of looking at me and going, we hope this is a success. And it has turned out to be amazing. The homeowners have loved it, and the trainers, we get together after every workshop and listen to the questions and look at the evaluations and you adjust this class based on what your questions are. Would you believe the sexiest topic right now is foundations? And we have had to grow that section. We started out maybe a 10-minute presentation. We now have a house, a little model house where we show how to water around the foundation out of landscape, and it now has become part of the demonstration. So this 4-hour class includes things like how to protest your property taxes, what kind of discounts are available to you. We show how to repair drywall, how to fix a leaking faucet. Again, maintaining your foundation. We talk about some folks go from a single AC unit in their window to an HVAC system overnight. Well, they've usually never had central air and heating unit. You don't know how to maintain it. So we teach them how they should change the filters, what kind of filters, annual maintenance, and just how to operate their thermostat. And so all of these things, we also bring in fire, and the fire folks talk about fire safety, really create them because many of our homeowners are hurt. And then finally, we bring in the Office of Emergency Services. Many of you experienced that storm Uri several years ago. That had a big impact on all of us, especially for the homeowners. So Office of Emergency Management talks about how to shelter in place, how to prepare for those weather events, and they also talk about if you need to evacuate, how you do that. So the class has just been extremely well received by the homeowners. We should have been doing this a long time ago. The credit to Veronica and Garcia and it just have been open to do this. Credit to Mark Carter for doing things, bringing the social workers. It's a new day, listen, and one opinion of them are doing so many new practices.
I think we'll just pass it around. It'll probably be a little bit easier. Well, thank you very much, Lori. I think, my big takeaway from that is before we were a little bit more focused on the home itself. Let's get it in good shape. Let's hand it over. Now we're looking a little bit more holistically at that resident. Yes, you need a home, but you may need other support services. So we're making sure we have people who are qualified to be able to interact with that family, who understand how to communicate with those families and connect them with those needs beyond just the home. And we are making sure that they're prepared to maintain that in the long term. And I think those both things are critical changes that we've been able to implement and something that we look forward to expand on going forward. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to talk to Nikisha Baker. Nikisha, you work primarily in addressing the unhoused and homeless population in San Antonio. And this is a very hot topic right now. There is no silver bullet, but we have a pretty comprehensive strategy. We have several strategies in our strategic housing implementation plan that are focused on permanent supportive housing, specifically with a housing first model. So can you talk a little bit about the work that you do in San Antonio? What is Housing First? And how can permanent supportive housing help us try to be one of the tools that we solve for homeless issues in San Antonio?
Thank you, Ian. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. In my work at SAMMinistries, I have the opportunity to work with individuals across the spectrum of homelessness. Everything from the unsheltered who are living on the street or in an encampment, to families who are fleeing domestic violence, to youth and young adults aging out of foster care. The concept of permanent supportive housing is one that is designed to serve our most vulnerable in community. It is individuals who have long histories of homelessness and who also have a disabling physical or mental health condition. SAMMinistries has been delivering permanent supportive housing in and around San Antonio and Bexar County since 2011, and our organization has maintained a 96% housing stability rate, again, for some of these most vulnerable in our community. At last count, individuals who qualified for permanent supportive housing had an average length of homelessness of 55 months, so nearly 5 years that we are talking about individuals who have lived on the street. We know that disabling conditions are both a cause and an effect of the incidence of homelessness. And we also understand and realize and recognize that homelessness is often a symptom of a much larger issue. The permanent supportive housing concept is non-time limited, and we often get some off-putting from community when we talk about the idea that we would provide rental assistance for an individual on a permanent basis. It's important to note that these individuals are not young men and young women who are able-bodied and are going to get up and after a period of stability and go to work on a full-time basis, earning a living wage that allows them to care for themselves and their family. The reason for that is because of their disabling physical or mental health care issue. But it is also not limited to providing that housing. Permanent supportive housing, the key to that is the supportive, the middle word, that includes intensive case management and connection to community resources that will help those individuals and families maintain housing stability. To Ian's point, the secret sauce for us in that 96% housing stability rate is case managers who have a small caseload. Many of them are licensed master social workers, licensed clinicians who are engaging with those families or individuals sometimes as frequently as once or twice a week. That is dictated by the needs of that individual. In addition to the ongoing case management, it is connecting those families or individuals to health care, mental health care, psychiatric care, benefits in community, whether that's veterans benefits, food stamp benefits, you name it, and our team is committed to helping those individuals acquire the needs and the resources that will help them maintain maximum independence and self-sufficiency for the long term. Permanent supportive housing is less expensive in community than individuals who are rotating through emergency shelter systems, who are rotating through hospitals, criminal justice system, all of those combined. And so it's an important investment in our community and those who are tremendously vulnerable to the elements. This past year, in December, SAMMinistries and our community partners celebrated the lives of 322 individuals who passed away without a place to call home. All of those individuals, most of those individuals, qualify for the permanent supportive housing intervention, and there just is not enough here in the community. It is a difficult concept to wrap your head around sometimes, and I often recognize that I am so close to it that I can just die hard and go hard relative to permanent supportive housing. So I welcome the opportunity to answer questions about all that goes into this concept. I have on a t-shirt that was created today by one of our team members, and it says "End Homelessness," and we've got smiley face and frowny face and all of those things. But on the back, it speaks to housing first is not housing only.
Understanding that by providing an apartment unit and rental assistance for an individual, however vulnerable they are, does not mean that we leave that individual in that unit ad to assimilate themselves to a normal life after having spent years on the street. Housing First is not housing only, but it recognizes the idea that in order for someone to address mental health, physical health, substance abuse issues, that they need to have a place to lay their head, a place where they feel safe and people who believe in them. And that's what SAMMinistries' mission is to deliver relative to permanent supportive housing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nikisha. That was really amazing. I do want to just mention that through the community's approval of the housing bond, we did have $25 million specifically set aside for permanent supportive housing. We were able to release a solicitation and make awards in conjunction with the county, so you can mind a little bit more money than we put out there. We're looking forward to breaking ground on several permanent supportive housing projects throughout the community, so it's something we're really excited for. I think Nikisha really touched on the importance of housing first, not housing unit. I really like that. It's the supports that also go in. And for addressing homelessness, one of the first things that we have realized as a community and nationally too, not just us, is that having somebody having something stable, somewhere stable to go, is the first step in being able to have access to the resources and supportive services they need to remain stably housed. So I think it's actually a great segue into Eric Estrada. Can you tell us a little bit more about what does it mean when we say support services? And specifically, when we talk about support services, are we only talking about programs, or are we also talking about people and community, and how do those things come together?
Sure, Nancy. So when we were talking about supports and services, for this conversation, the whole idea was, what is the secret sauce? How do we help people get into housing, stay in housing, be housing, be successful in housing? The thing that our organization focuses on, and what I'll talk about here, is the idea of mental health, right? And I think mental health means a lot of things to a lot of people. We could spend hours kind of going through a lot of the finer points of a lot of things that people believe, either correctly or incorrectly. But when we're talking about mental health here, we're really talking about the fact that every single person in this room is in some kind of mental state at any given point, right? Most of us are fortunate to spend most of the time being pretty well. Not everyone has that opportunity. Some people end up in mental level of distress because of biological reasons or environmental reasons or other reasons. And so when we're talking about support and services, we think about mental health as an organization, and what we get out in the community to our partners is that there's really about 4 parts to mental health that are critical for us to be well. The first one of those is to have a sense of community, to be part of something, to be in places where people care about you, where you want to see the people that are there, right? Sometimes those are obvious and logical, like family members potentially, or people in school or work. Sometimes they're not, and you got to find them in other places. The first part of that, again, is a sense of community. The second part of that is having a sense of purpose in what you do every day, getting up and feeling good about what you're doing. Looking around this building, there's volunteers, there are all kinds of places, there's all kinds of people doing stuff that they really care about. Having something you care about is an important part of being mentally well. The third part of that is having stability in your home, right? And that's what this whole event is about today. It's what the Strategic Housing Implementation Plan is about. It's about providing access to home in a way that is affordable and reasonable for folks. And the fourth part of that is having access to professionals who can provide actual health support. Well, the fourth part of it is actual health. And that could be therapy, that could be medicine, that could be counseling, that could be lots of stuff. That could be eating well or physical health. But all 4 of those we look at as being important. And I think if as individuals, we think about where in our lives we've been well, or when we felt the worst, one of those things probably thought of a I know that for me, I can point to the times in my life that have been the hardest, and I can point to which of those things wasn't working right. And so when we understand, and we can look at something as simple as that and say, mental health doesn't mean my brain, mental health means how I feel, based on a bunch of stuff that's happening in my life at any given point. It becomes this universal idea, and it becomes way easier to figure out, well, how can I help somebody else? Because I'm not a counselor, and I'm not a counselor. I have a degree in Spanish, so I can take your questions in Spanish if anyone has any. But we can talk about the things that we've experienced and what we know and how we can relate to other people and what their needs are. Super simple stuff. And so special sauce there, when we talk about supports and services, you say, there's organizations that can help us, there's people that can help us, and there's things we can do to help ourselves. sometimes it isn't obvious that if I just take this step and I sign up for an essay ready to work and get some support, I might feel better, I might get a job I like more, I might make some more money, and I can afford a better house, and I'm gonna feel better. You know, it isn't always obvious, but if you can always remember, like, you have those four kind of pillars of community and purpose and owning your health, and if you can address those in the different areas of your life, you can be well. And so I think sometimes we're hoping that there's an organization out there that can solve all our issues, and even though we have a lot of great organizations in the city who do a lot of really good work for us, that's going to be like the smallest part of it, right? Is the organization that can help us. A bigger part of that is really what can we do to help each other out. And again, my drive over here this morning, there was two different things that I saw on the side of the road. There was like a food bank service, someone providing food to people, and there was tons of cars there, and then not far beyond that, there was somebody just offering free breakfast. I have no idea who those people were or why they're giving out free breakfast. They were giving out free breakfast. And so that didn't require, I would imagine, a big logistical thing to figure out, is people that cared about that community and said, I'm going to do something here in my neighborhood, and came together and did those things. And so helping each other out is a thing that is more accessible, and we can do things for ourselves. It could be overwhelming, it can seem fun a lot. There's a lot of things that we can individually do. There are so many great resources out here that can help kind of at all of those levels and all four of those kind of dimensions of mental health. You've got people out there like Ready to Work. You have people like YWCA out there that provide community health workers, that provide access to services, that provide training. You have the San Antonio Community Resource Directory. Sacred is out there. Great resource of all kinds of information. I guess Sacred is also in the room. Welcome, Sacred. Incredible amount of resources that are out there that we can use to find how to support ourselves. So I think that's what I'm talking about when I talk about support services. You know, you can look at the services from organizations, but there's lots of supports we can do for ourselves and for others around us. If you can think of the simple elements of what helps keep us well, that is what's also going to help us stay well and healthy and successful in housing.
Thank you, Eric. That was really informative, and I think, you know, we're kind of going down the line in terms of drilling into not just the home, but the services, what types of services. And I think, you know, I'm seeing a theme here, right? And it's really looking at the person in each specific circumstance and situation, analyzing and offering the appropriate resource. It's a delicate skill, right? And I think this is a really great way to transition to the work that Liz does. Liz is a licensed clinical social worker, and you know, prior to working directly with programs which Liz has been involved in, if you would have asked me what does a social worker do, I probably would have said some very high-level things. That perception has completely changed. The work that frontline staff do in all of these organizations is truly incredible. So Liz, can you talk a little bit about, you know, we want to connect people with resources. But people need to be willing to go to those resources. You need to establish relationships. You have to build the level of comfort. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you do, and maybe talk a little bit about what trauma-informed care is and how that impacts the way you do your work?
Thank you. So Eric touched on a lot of points that I really have addressed, but I think the most important thing is in working with community, we're talking about a lot of resources here. However, there's a lot of families, individuals that have experienced something happened to them. They didn't wake up one day and say, this is how I want to do life, right? So giving folks a voice, giving folks some time, listening to their story. Really, it doesn't take a whole lot of ceiling just to listen. Sometimes we forget we're dealing with individuals, humans, and we forget folks' humanities because we have check boxes that we want to, policies we have to follow. But sometimes if we just invest a little bit of our time to hear, to connect with our communities, to connect with our families. We talk about creative adjustments and providing these services. There's a lot of resources out there in the cafeteria. However, if there's not anyone willing to listen and hear what's really needed in the community or providing accessibility to families and individuals, you're going to continue to have resources so many resources and not enough families knowing what's out there. Nowadays, you need a computer, you need to be on the internet. There are a lot of homes, a lot of seniors and communities that don't have access to that. Yes, we on the San Antonio libraries, they provide free computer services and internet services to families, but sometimes it requires someone needs a ride to get there. And not forgetting, right, that whole neighborhood, helping each other out. I visited a friend recently, and I said, wow, you have a great neighborhood. And he said, yeah, it's well preserved. They kind of call me the mayor of the block because we know each other, we look out for each other. And we have forgotten that. We have forgotten to look out for each other. And I think as a social worker, that's my secret sauce. I don't forget where I came from. And I want to give voice and choice to anyone I work with. And I will be willing to invest the time that they need to share their story and maybe connect, because I don't have all the answers. But I think together we can find the answers and make those creative adjustments that our communities need.
Hey.
All right, well that actually concludes kind of our discussion, our open discussion. Again, if you have any questions for us, we'll start getting into some Q&A. I see somebody with their hand raised. Please pass your card over to one of our staff members, and they will get the cards up here, and we will discuss them and answer the best that we can. So I do have one question. I think it's a good kickoff question. This one is specific to supports and services available for seniors. I think we kind of talked about the uniqueness of all supports and programs and the way that we interact with specific populations. And seniors is one that I think everybody is fairly familiar with. Older adults, we had a big campaign to shift that narrative. There's a lot of older adults. We as a country, we as a city, we will have more and more older adults. So the questions are, what kind of support services are out there? So I'll let anybody who feels like they're ready to answer that, go ahead and answer that. And then the other thing is about housing. So I'll take the housing question and I'll pass it over to Lori. I think she's got some questions. We do produce or help to produce housing, specifically low-income housing for seniors. So that is a set aside of projects that we fund. We have everything from low-income housing tax credits that are specific to that. I see Edward Gonzalez with Housing First Communities. He has a current support housing project specific to seniors. So there are specific developments within our community that are specifically focused for seniors. And that takes into consideration the unique circumstances of seniors, like ADA accessibilities. It also takes into consideration incomes. Many older adults are on fixed incomes, and so they are designed to accommodate those needs. So I'll pass it to Lori to talk a little bit about services.
Thanks, Ian. One of the primary beneficiaries of home rehab today are older homeowners. And one of the things that Liz is very effective at doing is getting family members to come to that home maintenance class with the homeowner. So they can see also what needs to be done to mom's house or mom and dad's house. They learn also, it's really funny when I start talking about transfer on death deeds for wills. Most of the folks in the room don't have one. That's where I see a lot of the kids, the older kids. When I say older kids, we've had a 90-year-old and her 60-year-old daughter come to these home maintenance classes. I see a lot of the older children looking at me like, yes, talk about that transfer on death deed. Tell us more about the wills, because there's this problem in the inner city with a numerous amount of properties that have not been willed properly, and as a result, there's a lot of tangled titles. And so I want to acknowledge some folks that are here in the audience today. MOC, the Mexican American Unity Council. I see Crystal, raise your hand. And one of the things we talk about in the home maintenance workshop is MOC's services and programs to help the seniors get that transfer on death deed or that will. Wills are expensive. The next less expensive thing is a transfer on death deed, which just transfers the property. So those are the types of support services that seniors need, and we're trying to gear our education toward those types of programs and services so that they'll take advantage of it.
I just like to add another resource for family, for seniors, the family. Let's not forget the importance, and I know Lori just touched on that, but patience with working with seniors. Sometimes you have to explain things once, twice, for better understanding. And I'll just share, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and some of the covenants, some of the program requirements go beyond my understanding, and I have to ask for assistance. So taking that time to explain things to seniors, families, anyone you come into contact, se olviden de hablar en español también, porque es bien importante.
All right, we have another question. I think this is a great one. How do I access these services if I live outside the city limits? So I would say that as the city of San Antonio, we are specifically focused on providing our services to the city, but they're not unique to the city. And I believe that some of you all may operate not within city limits, but county limits. So I'll let Nikisha talk about some of the things that they do countywide. But I will also say, as a strategic housing implementation plan, one of our key partners is Bexar County. And there's a reason for that. I mean, county and city limits are imaginary lines drawn on a map. You see the little sign that says you're leaving Bexar County, you're entering San Antonio. Other people live in one area, work in another, right? And so we have to have the resources, we have to have the housing, we have to have the services available countywide because people move. And again, we're just imaginary lines that people cross every day. So we are trying to coordinate as closely as we can with Bexar County to ensure that we do have that systematic, holistic approach when it comes to these matters.
So if you are a local household, family, or individual experiencing or facing homelessness in unincorporated Bexar County, you can visit SAMMinistries website, www.sam.org, to learn about resources available. Our programming and services are not specific to you residing in the city limits. We receive city funding, we receive county funding, and we receive federal funding to deliver programs and services to our client population. And so we are not limited or bound by a city council district or a zip code, and are able to serve all of our neighbors in and around San Antonio and Bexar County.
Okay, we're about to wrap up, but I want to give Eric an opportunity to maybe talk a little bit about what are some of the biggest challenges that you are seeing right now with your ability to be able to provide services to your clients.
We got 1 minute to talk about mental health. We're going to answer all of it. I think when it comes to mental health, the biggest thing I would say is just the lack of normalization around the language. Different words mean different things to different people. And so I will enter a conversation with someone says mental health, and they mean person who is unhoused under that bridge down there, and I don't know what to do about that. And someone will say mental health, and they'll say, I have a teenager who's stressed about what they're going to do after high school. And those are both mental health, and they're both real, and they're both things that we have to think about. I'd say the biggest challenge is just that. There isn't common language everywhere. Our organization is trying to work on that, trying to make that a little bit easier. There is all the stigma around a lot of these concepts because we don't talk about it, and because someone thinks that mental health is an extreme thing, that was, this thing happened, that was terrible, and that was a mental health thing. Well, that's not me, so I won't talk about mental health. I guess we're not those people. And I would say the stigma, the lack of language, because the stigma because of the lack of language are probably the biggest barriers that we have right now. There aren't enough resources from the clinical perspective, but there's 2 million of us in this community who can support each other if we understand how to talk about these things in a meaningful way.
Very well said. Thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you to our entire panel. We are at time. If you would like to talk to any of us after this panel, I don't want to speak for them, but we'll be available for a little bit to help answer any questions. If you didn't get a chance to give your question to one of our staff members, you'll be able to find us afterwards. And like I said, we will try and get the answers back to you. So thank you so much, panelists. This has been a great session. I'm sure we could have gone on for another hour, specifically on challenges. But yeah, I think this has been an excellent conversation, so thank you.
Thank you, panel one. Another round of applause for panel one. And introduce our moderator for panel number two, Kristen Davila. Kristen Davila is the president and executive director of McKee Housing Texas. She began at McKee in 2005 as a resident services coordinator, providing on-site supportive services for nearly 500 households. She has completed the San Antonio Area Foundation's certification in nonprofit leadership and management, the Hope Leadership Fellows Program, and Neighbor Works with America's Achieving Excellence Program, earning an executive education certificate from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. Kristen serves as a member of San Antonio's Housing Commission and on the Commission's Renter Solutions Subcommittee, which has an amazing video that is being played in the cafeteria. That again is the Renter Solutions Subcommittee with the San Antonio Housing Commission. I had the privilege of working with her on the Public Engagement and Outreach Subcommittee of the Housing Commission. The Commission's work, you all have heard from, those of you who have been in the auditorium for most of the day, you all have heard the amazing work of the Housing Commission. If you want to learn more about the Housing Commission, you can. There are monthly public meetings that are virtual and in person. More information at sa.gov/MHSD. Kristen is chair of the San Antonio Area Foundation SALSA, Successfully Aging and Living in San Antonio Steering Committee, which is an initiative that seeks to create a community where older adults are respected, they thrive, and live connected to lives. My experience with Kristen and the way that she has worked, and one reason why we asked her to moderate this panel is her ability to operate with not just humility and warmth, but real brilliance and grace. And so I'm really excited to hear about the ways in which individuals on this panel, we'll let them introduce themselves, but the ways individuals on this panel are able to think through what communities need and adjust services. So without further ado, Kristen Davila and panel number two.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. We're so glad that you're joining us this morning or afternoon, I guess it is now. It's been a wonderful event so far. We're glad that you're here for us for this panel. We're going to start by having each one of our panelists introduce themselves and describe a program that they're working on, as well as some aspects of that program that are innovative. So we'll start first with Laura Salinas.
Good afternoon, everyone. I work with Grow America, formerly the National Development Council, and we are a national nonprofit organization that works with state and local governments to provide training and technical advisory services on a wide array of programs, housing programs and economic development programs. We were fortunate enough to receive some funding from the City of San Antonio, Bexar County, Local Initiative Support Corporation, San Antonio, SOFLIS, as well as the San Antonio Housing Trust to deliver the SEED Academy. And SEED stands for Supporting Empowered Emerging Developers. And so we were able to put on this wonderful curriculum to train minority developers and provide them very valuable resources. I'm so excited to be here and share a lot more about that program. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Cruz. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Programs and Development for the Mexican American Unity Council. I've been with the organization for 16 years, and MOC has been around for 56 years in the community. We're located in the west side of San Antonio, but we service everyone in Bexar County. And so we focus on 3 areas: education, affordable housing, and economic opportunity. And the program we're here to highlight today is thanks to the San Antonio Housing Trust. We were funded to be able to start the Westside Community Land Trust, which is something new to the city of San Antonio. So we're here to really talk about what it means to preserve the land in the west side of San Antonio and keep the affordability for 100 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeannie Wright, and I'm a cooperative program manager for Rock USA. And Rock USA is a national social venture nonprofit that works with residents of manufactured housing communities across the country, helping the residents form limited equity not-for-profit cooperatives, and we provide the support and resources for them to come together, work together, and purchase their community and operate it on a cooperative basis. What's unique about the Rock USA model and resident ownership is that limited equity means that each of the homeowners inside of the community can basically buy their homeowner share for a limited amount of money. Typically the buying fee is about $100 or $200. We work alongside of the residents throughout the process, providing support and training as they kind of explore their own future of becoming the landowner beneath where their homes live. So we're not new. We've been around since 1984. It's a community project that started up in the little state of New Hampshire. And we are now today, we've helped more than 300 communities across the country in 21 different states become landowners, basically preserving the community permanently and helping the community operate and keeping the rents affordable. Believe it or not, there are only 3 in the state of Texas, and the project I'm here to talk about today is the folks over at the Riverside Manufactured Housing Park on Mission Road had the courageous opportunity this summer to come together and work alongside of us, and they purchased their community successfully on November 11th and became the first resident-owned manufactured housing park in San Antonio. They are 55 sites, and there are 44 current homeowners. They did all of the work alongside me themselves. They got together as the homeowners and organized and created their corporate structure and hired an attorney and an engineer and basically walked through the purchase process just like another commercial investor. And this project had great support from the city of San Antonio and the San Antonio Housing Trust. And in this first year of ownership, they have plans to work inside the community on their infrastructure, replacing the water, the sewer, the electrical systems, and also make some renovations that are going to feel good to them, like new mailboxes and new fencing and a nice community sign. So the residents are pretty excited. I'm excited to work alongside of them. And yeah, we hope to do more work here in San Antonio in the future.
Good afternoon. My name is Edward Gonzalez, and I have the honor of being the executive director for the Housing First Community Coalition. We're a nonprofit in San Antonio. We are housed and based in Council District 2, so in this district, and County Precinct number 4. So our project, and one of the areas that I will be speaking to you about today, is called the Town Twin Village Project. So those of you that were in the previous panel discussion, very similar, exactly similar to the work that Nikisha was discussing around permanent support housing. So I will go and try to go into a little more detail about the work that we're doing at Town Twin Village. So the village itself is, again, a permanent support housing development. So we are currently developing and operating the site. When I say we're currently developing and operating, is that we knew that the resource and the need for this resource is so great in our community that we decided to open and have a plan to move in folks as quickly as possible while still being safe until the development was done. And all of these housing developments that we talk about are much needed, and we can't wait for them, right? So time is of the essence. So I think there's a graphic behind us for some folks that pictures of people. Our development is for folks that are 55 years and older, right? 50, 55 years old, so senior permanent support housing. We opened in April of 2023, and all of these folks that we're highlighting have been moved in and they're flourishing, right? So these individuals are coming from the streets of San Antonio. So that's exactly what we do. So we are housing individuals that are living unhoused in our community, primarily in the age 50 and older. So they're individuals that have been living on the streets of San Antonio for more than our average for the people that are living on campus, which is 57 people right now, is 8 years of homelessness. So Nikisha said that their average is 5 years, our average is 8 years. So we are targeting those folks and we're identifying the individuals that are most in need. I mean, that shows us that we are grabbing the right people, right? And the people that need it. So a little bit about the development. It's 17.4 acres. It's on the east side of San Antonio, right here on Dietrich Road, right up the road here. If any of you are familiar with this neighborhood, been in the neighborhood a while, there was an outdoor theater called the Town Twin Village Outdoor Movie Theater. We have we're paying some honor to that, and we're keeping the name Town Twin Village as our development. At the end of the development, we hope to have 204 units of permanent supported housing. So in 2023, I mentioned we have 57 units that are occupied. About 66 units in 2024 that will open. We're getting ready to move in our first residence for this year in April of this year. And really, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's really about the things that Nikisha talked about, but the support service is really the needed thing, and the community partnerships that we've been able to develop. We're not experts in every discipline that's needed for making housing retention successful for individuals that are transitioning off the street. Individuals are suffering from mental health addiction, or outside from addiction services. They're suffering from depression as a minimum, right? It also is a gamut of things that, of trauma that we're trying to heal. And we, in our organization, is not expert in that. So we are experts in gathering community and also experts in really love and housing. So we're focusing on the housing, and we're letting our partners focus on those other professional services. And we'll talk a little bit more about this hopefully as the discussion goes on. So again, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having us, and this is going to be a great intimate discussion.
Thank you all so much. I look forward to hearing a little bit more about each one of your projects. But before we get into that, I wanted to highlight, the need for affordable housing has always been there in our community. The organization that I run was founded in 1995 as a response to that need in the community. And that need just has continued to grow. And the existing systems that we have in place to produce affordable housing, to respond to that need, they're doing a good job, but they're not the only solution. And so we're having to think differently. We're having to think creatively. We're having to think collaboratively to solve some of these challenges. So I applaud each one of you in the work that you're doing for bringing that collaborative spirit to your work. I wanted to also remind the attendees here that this is intended to be a discussion. So we're going to have a couple of questions for the panelists. And if you've got questions that come to mind, write them down on that little index card, and the city staff will be coming by to collect those cards. We're going to pause after the first couple of questions to take some of the questions from the audience members, and then we'll resume with the panel discussion and then have another short Q&A session. So the first question that I've got is for Laura, and that's, what's the impact of the project that you're working on, the Seed Academy? Can you tell us a little bit about that impact?
Thank you, Kristen. Well, the Seed Academy was created over 10 years ago by Grow America to help build capacity in communities all throughout the U.S. What the Seed curriculum does is start with a week-long program where you have practitioners in the field that are teaching minority and women developers about the real estate development process. And they are going through an array of panels and case studies to teach them about to build a concept or create a concept, land acquisition, secure financing, prepare a pro forma, a development pro forma, construction, completion. So they go through that whole process. It's a week long. They're taught by these practitioners in the field, and then they get an opportunity to pitch their project. So they get a couple of weeks to prepare their concept. It can be real or something that they want to do later on. And they pitch this project to potential real estate partners and real estate professionals. And what's wonderful about this, what's innovative, is that it increases their opportunity to have access to financing that is set aside for low-income communities. It gives them access to long-term potential partnerships and real estate professionals, so that they can, not only build that capacity within them, but sustain that capacity. And in addition, the curriculum itself is something that they will be able to take with them for the rest of their lives. So we are not only teaching, but it's the foundation of what will hopefully be generational wealth building in the community.
Thank you. So we're growing the number of people that have the skills and the access and the knowledge to help address this situation. This is a good question and one of my favorites. I'll ask Crystal first and then move over to Edward. What is the importance of involving the community in your work? Why is it important to involve the community in the work that you're doing?
Thank you, Kristen. I think one thing that we heard the last panel was we want to do things with community, not tell community what they need. And I think that's a huge part of what we're doing at MOC, is making sure that we're walking along with the community and finding out what exactly the needs are. And we've heard in certain areas, these are things that stand out. We've heard affordable housing, buying a home is very difficult. It's becoming more difficult in the West Side. And so for us, this community land trust is very different to our community, in not just the West Side, but in San Antonio in general. And so we want to make sure that we're educating the community, we're hearing the community, we're talking to all levels of community, from residents to the city, to county, to banks, to really understand the model, and for all of us to walk along to have a very successful program.
So I echo those sentiments, and I'll add one more piece to how we view community and the importance within our project, was that, we did a lot of work and a lot of research around going to the community and identifying what they would like to see as part of the development. So not only our partners that are providing formal supports, but also the neighborhood. What do you want to see in this type of work? And I think that the important community aspect is that what we heard through those conversations were, how can we help? One is, how can we be part of this, and how can we help? So we figured that, and one of our biggest workforce and resources for the campus is going to be volunteers. So we started and engaged a big volunteer network, right? So we want to have folks that want to be engaged and want to participate and give some sweat equity to the project. Maybe not every day, but maybe once a week, maybe once a month. And we've identified ways to make that happen. So that's one community involvement. I think the other is being involved in we are sitting in a neighborhood, and we're a big part of that neighborhood, 17.4 acres. So we definitely need to be part of the communication between the neighbors that are happening there. So we invite neighbors to come and see what's happening. We have birthday celebrations that are open to the community, right? So we want to celebrate our residents, as an example, but we're also invite the neighborhood to come and have an ice cream or to drink soda with us, right? So have a piece of cake. And I'll tell you that the neighborhood has responded. They have been going, and we've been fruitful, because those visits from neighborhood have also been able to turn into some volunteer opportunities, and then also be ambassadors for us about what's truly happening on campus. So I think that's something that's important for us, because without neighborhood support, we couldn't be there, right? We couldn't operate. We don't operate in a silo, and that's really the benefit of what we see as our community, immediately surrounding. We hope that this circle expands. Right? We want to start the community circle within the residents themselves, which we're building community for folks that, again, we're serving folks that have been homeless or unhoused for a very long time. So we're building that community amongst their neighbors that are within the development, inside the gates. And then we're starting to build community with those folks outside, which are our neighbors outside the gate. And hopefully and eventually we'll continue to expand that community outside of our District 2 into the next district, etc. So community is very important for our mission and the work that we're doing.
Thank you so much, Edward. The next question I have for you, really, again, is also close and near and dear to me. Merced Housing Texas, the organization that I run, was founded by 9 different congregations of Catholic sisters. And they came together to work collaboratively to address the needs of the community. And that theme and that value of collaboration continues with the organization through today. So, Crystal, a question for you. What have you been able to accomplish that you wouldn't have been able to without that community collaboration?
Thank you. The biggest part is when you say community land trust, not many people really understand what that means. And in order for this to be effective, it's having every layer understand what it means to have a community land trust in the west side of San Antonio or in San Antonio in general. So just to get a gauge, if I say community land trust, raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So this is the conversation we want to have, and it's having that conversation with the community to really understand what does it mean. So to give you a brief overview, because it can take hours to kind of go to community land trusts, we're still learning, and we're in the beginning stages of doing the research, of being with community and working with different partners to really understand what it means to partner with us to create a community land trust. So if the goal is that Mark would own the land for 100 years to preserve the affordability. So the homeowner wouldn't own the land, but they would own the home. And so it's a very different model than we're used to, but we know that that's a way we can create home ownership and keep that affordability, to stop gentrification within communities that are low and moderate income, to be able to make sure that the community also stays preserved. And so this is the goal, to make sure that we're preserving the west side of San Antonio, stopping gentrification, and kind of controlling the narrative of what's going to happen to the community, and making sure that the community members are able to stay in the communities that they grew up in, and creating that generational wealth. And to understand that, it's a conversation, it's an educational session that we have to do. It really is working with community to really understand the model. When growing up, I was taught, buying your first home is important. As a first generation Latina, that's something that was engraved in me, right? So the first thing I did was I have to find a way to purchase a home. But it's becoming harder and harder to do so in today's economy. We're looking at $250,000 to $300,000 homes now as a average starter price. So how do we help younger generations and even all generations be able to continue staying in their homes or be able to purchase a home? And so the goal of the community land trust is to keep that affordability and make sure that we're preserving the communities that we serve.
So this next question is for Janae. Can you talk a little bit about some of the barriers you face in your work, and particularly with the project that you just recently worked on, and what are some of the misunderstandings that folks have?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I think when I bring up the term manufactured housing or mobile home or mobile home park, I think stigma is probably no surprise to anybody I've learned. Two big barriers, the biggest barrier we do have is stigma. One is specifically related to folks that live in manufactured housing or mobile home parks, and the second is about the homes themselves. And I think an important thing to establish is that there are more than 22 million Americans that choose manufacturing housing as the place to call home. And there are 43,000 manufacturing housing communities across the country. So when we talk about the impact of stigma, it goes a long way. And most of the misconceptions and barriers are about the folks that live there, being poor or being less than, or maybe being stuck where they live. And truth be told, that has a huge impact on how people feel about allowing people into their home to get resources that they need to connect with, or inviting people to their home, or having maybe their friends or their children's friends come over after school. And to be honest, home is really where people tuck themselves in and their families in at night, right? So where people choose to live, it doesn't matter what we think of where people live. It's important to remember that's their home and it's their place. And most people are very proud of it, but also the stigma keeps them in the face of shame. The other barrier is the misconception about the homes themselves. Number one, mobile homes, believe it or not, are not mobile. They're not something that are very, very easy for somebody to pick up and move. So in our mission, we work with a lot of communities that are at risk of closure. And I'm sure you've heard in San Antonio there have been hard closures. And when somebody's living in a home and doesn't have the financial means, or the home itself can't be moved, it's often that people walk away from something that was their valuable asset, and now they're left trying to scramble or trying to find a different place to live, and there's not enough housing to go with. So, it's oftentimes when we come into a community and we organize a resident group, there's often a mistrust there right out of the gate. They're thinking, why are you here? And are you here because you want to buy our community and you want to become our landlord and close us down? So trying to shift the narrative and really listen to people and have empathy and respect for the folks that live there is super important. But also as we develop a source of relational partners throughout the process, attorneys, engineers, property management companies, really helping them to understand that the folks that live there are just like you and I in turn. They want better, they want to do better, they want the opportunity to succeed in life. And I think as this community develops their own sense of leadership and ownership and community pride, I can't wait to see the results and how that fosters into the rest of the community in Rome.
Thank you. And Laura, could you share your thoughts on that? Any type of thoughts on barriers or misunderstandings in the work that you do?
Well, I think the biggest barrier is really for our minority and women developers. Now that they've gotten access to this curriculum and this support network, they really need help with starting. And we have set aside a $50,000 pre-development loan fund that can be used for just starting their LLC if they wanted, or to get market studies or things that they wouldn't traditionally get funding for. It may be hard for them to get funding because they're not so established. And so we're trying to recognize those barriers and provide support for them. I did want to mention too that it's so important for folks to just learn the idea of the geography, right? Like who to call, when's the right time. And I think the critical component here, and what really holds people back, is not having the lay of the land, not understanding that geography. And so this network of folks, we had a local partner, Prosper West, and then LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation of San Antonio. They were there with us as well to build this network for these developers, these emerging developers. So something that's really hard is just to understand the lay of the land and just to get started and get in there and know the right people. So we're trying to utilize these tools to help them run that.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to transition to some questions from all of you. And this first one, I think, ties in really well to what we were just talking about, which is misconceptions. And the question is about permanent supportive housing, and that there's a huge need in the community. Time is of the essence, and kind of what does that timeline look like? And before you jump in, Edward, I want to just highlight that a lot of folks think that development starts when that shovel hits the dirt, and that's not the case. It takes sometimes years to get development funding in place, to get the right development numbers on your team, and architect, engineers, and each project, each community, each property is different. You can take some learnings from one experience and apply them to the next one, but there is no one property that goes through the same challenges as the other. So I think it's important for folks to remember that it takes a long time for these projects to really get to the point where residents can move in. So can you talk to us a little bit more about what was the timeline like for Town Twin?
Sure. So for us, so our nonprofit was started in 2017 with the sole goal of developing the permanent supportive housing development. So we didn't break ground until May of 2021. And I didn't come on board until October of 2021, which kind of accelerated things. But so that just tells you how long our board took to establish, gathering the expertise, talking to the right individuals. That was our journey, and that's 5 years right, before we did anything, before dirt hit the ground. But I also believe that as a community we have a plan. Right? So we talked about the SHIP. There was a presentation about the SHIP, and permanent supportive housing was identified as a missing element within single-site permanent supportive housing because San has a long history of operating scattered site permanent supportive housing. And they do a great job with that. But single-site permanent supportive housing, which Town Twin and San is involved in as well, that was one of the missing pieces, right? A site that is in one location where services can be provided in one location. Mental health services, behavioral services, volunteer services. So those are the things that happen. And the SHIP has a plan now, right? So the SHIP has identified that we need 1,000 units of permanent supportive housing interventions over the next, and I don't want to say the wrong timeline, but I think it's next 5 years. So I believe we're already at 40% of those, or 40% of those units are in progress, or funded, or will happen, right? So, and we're a good part of we're 20% of those units, we have 200 units. This is something that is, once it's codified in that document, and once the community knows that there is a plan to get done, and I'm happy to be part of that plan. So yes, it does take time. Development is very difficult, especially, I go back to what Laura said, we all work together. I work with Laura all the time, with Kristen and others on this panel, because we need to lean on each other. The way that the federal government works, and they're a big part of our sustaining operations, right? And the way that we work, none of this can happen without collaboration, because the city is funding our development, so is the county, and so is private philanthropy. But they are focused on capital, right? They are going to build the units. Eventually, once those units are built, I need to find an operating source for those, right? And the federal government, and HUD in particular, is the agency that funds this type of service. They fund supportive services so that we have a case management, we get our behavioral health service. But they won't do it until something's built, right? So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. It's like, well, I can't get operating services until we have a building, and I can't build anything until my pro forma kind of pitches out. So I'm like, well, I'm serving people that make no money. Like they're homeless. So how do we get through that hurdle? And through innovative strategy and thinking, and a little bit of faith, right? And then we're able to move forward with getting the development of the road, because in a typical, if you're just checking the box, you're going to hit a hurdle right away. You're going to say, oh, well, we can't go any further because the underwriting doesn't work.
That's where we as a community have to say, okay, Mara, help us. How do we be unique and how do we tell folks that there is some risk involved, but it's not as much risk as saying we cannot get this done. So I think that's my response to that question.
Thank you. The next question is, we had a couple kind of around the same theme, and that was, how do people qualify? Who qualifies for the programs that you all just described? And in particular, what resources, housing resources, are available for folks that are not U.S. citizens to access? Can they access the programs that you all just described? I'll start with you, Laura.
So, Pro-America, in collaboration with the city, as I mentioned, in Bexar County, we put out an application for the cohort in San Antonio. And community members sifted through the applications and selected about 25 emerging developers to participate in the class. And as I mentioned, upon graduating and presenting their capstones, they are eligible to apply for a pre-development loan that is forgiven over a 3-year period.
So for our services in Mock, we try our best to, if we can undo it and transfer out. And so if it's someone who is undocumented or doesn't have the services, there's certain agencies that kind of assist them, we definitely look for the resources to be able to guide them, leading to where they can receive that assistance. And for the income qualifications, for most of our programming that we have in-house on the social service side, education, we don't require any income base, but for the programs that the city team moving forward, we know that it's something that we're going to have to look at. That's where we're really working with community, really find out what the need is. If it's 60% AMI, is it 80% AMI? Where is the sliding scale? We know the west side predominantly, their income might fall between $25,000 to $45,000. If they're looking to buy a home, where does that fall in? And so those are all the steps that we're currently taking to do the research to find out what is the need, where can we focus on to kind of make sure we're assisting them to jump the hurdle and become housed.
So this is a unique question for our work. And I think a little later in the panel, we're going to talk a little bit about focus areas and what, which communities we work with and why. But I would say for me, I'm fortunate that when I go into a community to organize a group of residents, it's their willingness to engage. So as long as, we are a home ownership model. We don't primarily work with large groups of renters. Occasionally, a community will have a couple of renter homes in it, but most of the folks we work with are homeowners. And, we tell them they're in control. They have the driver's seat, and they have to be willing to show up, engage, and participate, but also understanding that takes responsibility. In a co-op model, they have to become a member, and that member is their one household is one member of the corporation. So the buy-in fee gets them a vote, and that takes participation, that takes wanting to have a better community and show up and listen, and both to be heard and to listen. So I'm fortunate we don't have to worry about qualifiers, it's just willingness.
So to become a resident of Town Twin Village, again, we're trying to help and trying to make an impact on reducing street homelessness in San Antonio. So individuals have to obviously be unhoused, and we're talking literally living in the streets, not in, we also do qualify and take folks that are in shelter. You have to be homeless for more than 1 year. You also have to have either, like Nikisha mentioned earlier, one disabling condition, so individuals that have a physical or mental health disability. It's another piece of criteria. And then really, we do not, it doesn't matter whether you are documented or undocumented. So I wanted to make sure we address that question. So we're taking folks that are 55 years and older, and we feel that those are the most vulnerable individuals in San Antonio. Right? They are the life expectancy differential between someone that is housed and unhoused in the United States is about 25 years different. So if you're living on the street anywhere in the nation, you are probably expecting, your life expectancy is about 25 years after someone has a house. In San Antonio, folks that are like 60 years of age, 65, and living on the streets, they're really at the end of their life. If they're not housed within the next or immediately, we all understand what happens next. That's why the urgency for us to focus on those individuals of that age, to go out, and we seek them, right? So these are individuals that are living on the street that don't come to my office saying, hey, I'm get in. Although we haven't had a couple folks do that. We have outreach teams that we work with that are going out seeking individuals and saying, hey, we see that you're living in the street. We see that you're a certain age. Would you like a resource? And here's a promise. We have to build a lot of trust, right? Because they probably had that conversation in the past about would you want to seek housing? And somebody they probably answered that question yes, and maybe they got disappointed because it didn't happen already. For us, when we seek folks and we ask them, would you like to have a house? We immediately move them in, right? Because we don't want to disappoint you. So that's our criteria.
Thank you very much. These are all really great questions from the audience. I'm going to transition back to a couple of questions that we have prepared for you all. And one is a very important one, which is what we hear often in community discussions is questions about why was a certain project or community or development created in a certain neighborhood or on a certain side of the city. Why does that happen? What goes into selecting where a project is developed? And I'm going to turn that question over to Jalen and then Krista.
So, uniquely about Riverside Terrace was that the owners of that community, there are a lot of manufactured housing communities in the south side of San Antonio, but particular to that one, there was willing sellers. So that is one of the biggest, we only work with manufactured housing communities, and we only work with manufactured housing communities that are either being sold or are the setup that the current owners getting ready to sell. So, one of the challenges is we've had folks come to us and say, can you come over to our community? We had one right up the road from Riverside Terrace. Some of their neighbors came down and chatted with us and said, how do you help our community? And we had to explain to them that unless the community is for sale, there's really not a lot we can do. We can educate the seller that it's an opportunity down the road for them. And then it's definitely, it's getting the word out that is an opportunity. And there aren't a lot of barriers to a park owner selling to the residents. And going back to the question we had about barriers, one of them is the misconception to sellers is my residents would never be able to do that. So it's really just understanding that, we're available and it's an opportunity to discuss it, and we have acquisition folk in our organization that can talk them through the process. But it's really getting the seller comfortable that they can. We walk them through 100% of the process. And, it's the hard part right now is that any commercial real estate is just enormously, tremendously expensive right now. So I think a lot of the community owners are getting hounded with developers and other large industry park owners that want to come in and buy the community for enormous amounts of money. So it's really hard because sometimes when we go into a community, we have to take a look at the pro forma, we have to take a look at what that looks like. And sometimes we can see ahead of time that where the community rents would end up might not be something advertising for the residents. So we hope for the best, and we're out racing across the country right now trying to do the same thing, educate people that resident ownership is possible. And I do want to mention that in some states there are opportunity to purchase laws in place that say if a manufactured housing community owner intends to sell, they have to notify the residents and give them the right of first refusal. Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that yet in Texas, but who knows, maybe someday.
So I'll go ahead and speak on that. So I think for us, We're in the west side of San Antonio, which is considered the lowest or the poorest communities in the city of San Antonio. And so I think that we're looking at projects as we're trying to preserve the community. We're trying to make sure we're keeping the affordability in place. We have been seeing a lot of predatory activity happening over the last couple of years. We've seen gentrification of certain coming and buying and flipping and selling for triple or more. We see letters going to homeowners constantly. They're coming to mom and saying they're asking me to sell my house for very little when they could be making more. So we see a lot of the trends happening already within the community of displacement of community members that have lived there their entire life. And so how do we help these communities? How do we preserve the affordability and preserve the integrity of the community as well? The West Side community has been historically a very Latino-oriented community, a very vibrant with culture, and so we want to make sure we can maintain that and keep people in place. So if the prices keep going up, how do we maintain that affordability for community to stay there and afford the displaced community members for the West Side? And I think that this is just a model that we're looking at the West Side, but I know there's other communities within San Antonio that are probably facing the same situation. And so we want to make sure that we can make this a successful model so that it can be implemented across the city of San Antonio and the communities of Wayne.
This next question is for you, Edward. Can you address some of the misconceptions there are in the community about who needs affordable housing? This is one that, again, gets me pretty fired up because folks tend to other those that need affordable housing. Everybody needs an affordable place to live. So it's not... it's a wide range of folks that are in need, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Everyone needs affordable housing. I need affordable housing. Everyone in this room needs affordable housing. I'm an affordable housing advocate. And although I focus on the 0 to 30, I think if you walk around Salt Lake, you would see that some of our programs are traditionally based on area median income, right? It's about income. And our project focuses on folks that are making 0 to 30% of their AMI, which is very, very low income. Zero, what living is. But the way that I kind of see it personally is that the folks that are most disadvantaged by a lack of housing are folks that are in those lower income AMI categories. The more housing that we build, the more housing that's available, then the spectrum seems to be a little bit widening, right? So folks that are living in, because there's a lack of choice, in a certain housing type can move to a different unit or different housing type if there's more of it, right? So we need to not only infuse affordable housing for folks that are at a certain income level, what traditionally is 0 to 80% of AMI, but we need to infuse housing in all market levels to increase the availability of that. The affordability is really based on your own income, right? So whether I make $100 or I make $1,000, I don't want to pay more than 30% of my income, right? I literally don't want to pay 30% more of my income. Now, I may have different choices based on what that income level is, and that it goes to the inventory of housing. So I support all housing rates. But you don't want to be cost burden, right? So if you're paying more than 30% of your income to housing, then you are a cost burden. You should be looking for other options, or traditionally we want to help you not be cost burden or paying more than that, right? So that's kind of my stand, and I think all housing depends. It's just relative to who would value them as their workers.
Thank you. And if y'all haven't checked out the AMI exhibit that the staff had put together out in the hallway, please do. Because here we're talking in language that's very technical, AMI, 50%, 30%. But what does that mean? What does the person making 30% of the area median income, what do? Do they work? Are they receiving disability check? Are they, is it, what's, someone at 60% AMI? What's their income and what types of professions are there? So please check that out because it really does help to put a face and humanity to this issue that we're dealing with as a community. So we have one more question from the audience, and this one is for you, Edward, and it was, do you serve folks with disabilities that are under the age of 55, or is it exclusively for people 55 and older?
So it is exclusively for folks that are 55 and older. We do recognize that there are individuals that need this intervention at all age levels, right? As an adult, starting at 18 through the end of your life. We work with partners and we support partners to do that work. We ourselves wanted to focus and start, I would say, what we have identified as a very vulnerable population. And then as we find success, we hope to maybe start another development that may change that criteria. I mean, it could be for any adult that has that same circumstance, success on the age. Right? So SAMMinistries does this, working on a project right now that the city is supporting, and the county is supporting, and we are supporting. For us, it doesn't matter who's doing it. It just matters that it's getting done because this community needs it. So they will be focusing on folks that are 18 that may not fit our criteria. I also just want to maybe end by just saying I apologize to other panel members. Sometimes I get a lot of questions because people want to know kind of what the work that we're doing. So I wasn't expecting some of that today. So apologize.
Thank you all so very much. I just want to say in closing that a challenge as big as the need for affordable housing in our community can feel really big and really out of reach. But you all gave some really specific examples of how you're working creatively and collaboratively to address the issue, thinking differently. And that's what we need. So I encourage all of you to be inquisitive, learn more where you can, and advocate for additional funding sources for affordable housing, not just with your local city and county elected officials, but at the state and national level, because that's where most of the funding for the programs that each of these folks have talked about comes from. So that's one tangible thing that you can do to help address this. And like I said before, please be inquisitive, ask to learn more. If somebody uses a term that you don't understand, ask. I guarantee you any one of us would be willing to explain more. So thank you so much for your time and for joining us for this conversation. We really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you so much to our panelists. Can we do another round of applause? There are many people who have been here since Mr. Reese was here at 7 a.m. to help set up. We have volunteers that have been here for a really long period of time. I just want to do a round of applause for our volunteers right now. Thank you. And thank you to our panelists. There are other housing commissioners in the room, and I just want to make sure that we're creating access to people who are having critical conversations in a public forum and for ways to engage. So if you're a housing commissioner, could you just raise your hand? We have 3. So I want to say thank you here from one. And I want to shout out to Commissioner Abraham, who's here in the front. Could you raise your hand one more time? He chairs the Public Engagement and Outreach Subcommittee of the Housing Commission. And so if you want to engage with us and with the public and have some sort of outreach, you can contact him. Thank you so much, Commissioner Abraham, for all the work that you do. Thank you again to our panelists. We really, really appreciate you. Were there any other questions that you have? Okay, we're good. Okay. Thank you all so much. I appreciate y'all. We have closing remarks from a very, very, very special guest, so stay seated. Thank you again so much for being here today. The event is almost over. The breakfast tacos have been eaten. Yes, I love this reminder to stretch. A lot of conversations about housing are really hard because they're complicated and they're personal and they're emotional, and I'm just really thankful for the vulnerability. I know we didn't get to all the questions that were submitted. I'm going to hand it off to Sarah. Again, my name is Simone Diaz-Sanchez. I am the Community Engagement Administrator with the Neighborhood and Housing Services Department. If you want to get in touch about this event or about questions you have, my email is SIBONEY_DIAZ. Thank you for spelling this out. SAMCHEZ@sanantonio.gov. And I'm going to hand it off to Sarah.
Thank you, Siboney. One round of applause for Siboney and Maribel, who really led all of the coordination and are humble to say that. My name is Sarah Momsley Estrada. I'm the Housing Policy Administrator with NHSD. And I just want to echo what Siboney said. We can't thank our sponsors enough. We can't thank our speakers enough. We can't thank you enough for being here on a Saturday. We hope that if you enjoyed today or you didn't enjoy today, either way, we have a survey. We would love for you to fill it out. Tell us what to do better next year. But now, to bring us to a close, I am so honored to introduce someone who is a true powerhouse when it comes to advocacy. She is a housing commissioner. She's active on every single one of those subcommittees, so you can talk to her about anything. And in her free time, she's also a motivational speaker. I know there is just no one better to bring today to a close than Commissioner Nikki Johnson. Nikki.
And the young one, but the rise to the occasion. That's another. Can y'all see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, give yourselves a huge round of applause, whether you volunteered, you spoke on the panel, you showed up to get the information that you needed. We appreciate all of you and everything that you've done. So please give yourself a big round of applause. Sarah, I want to thank you for that beautiful introduction. I've had the pleasure of working with her for so many years now, and we're so grateful to you and all that you do. You as Siboney, y'all are powerhouses, and I love you with all my heart. Thank you again for everyone for being here. I am Nikki Johnson. I'm a housing commissioner. I'm also a community advocate. And y'all see the picture back there that they chose. Look at that. Today has been emotionally powerful for me in a grateful way to see all of the accumulation of all of the hard work, all of the meetings, all of the community input, all of the work from NHSD, all of the volunteers, the housing commissions, and all the different subcommittees, and you all being here. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure hearing all of the conversations that took place today as well, and sharing the information and resources. And if you did not have the opportunity to visit the tables to pick up resources, please do so before you leave. There's truly so much happening in housing in San Antonio. Today we learned so much about housing bond, accessory dwellings, renter rights, the promised donors, just to name a few. This is only a small fraction of the work that's being done each day. For my fellow commissioners and I, it's our job to advise on the city's great housing work. And we get a bird's eye view of what local organizations are doing, not just in housing, but also in workforce development, transportation, and economic development. We are so excited when we get to see all the different organizations working together and collaborating together. And we hope that this event resonated with you. And if it did, that you will take your survey that Sarah did reference, and that you also continue to stay engaged by following the Housing Commission meetings. In the coming 2 years, we'll be focused on 5 priorities: recommending principles for increasing density, connecting housing and transportation, supporting a legislative advocacy coalition focused on sharing messaging, financing, and public-private partnership, engaging with the rental owners and operators, and supporting a public information campaign to reframe affordable housing. How many of you know that we need to really reframe how much being affordable housing? We meet on the 4th Wednesday of the month at City Tower, and you can do the meetings virtually. You can watch the recordings later if you're able to watch live, and you can also submit your comments at any time at the link that is located behind you. We also have a handful of other amazing subcommittees which we meet publicly. The Renter Solutions Subcommittee, which focuses on creating positive experiences for renters and rental housing providers. I personally co-chaired that subcommittee along with Commissioner Chris Rowland that moderated this previous panel. And you may have seen us over at our Rick Wise essay exhibit. Over at the exhibit, if you were interested in getting more information about the Renter Solutions Subcommittee, please visit that table for engagement. There's so much work being done by this committee, and it's important that all of you know that this work is being done by community volunteers. Some are renters and some are rental operators who work together in the space. So we're going to be recruiting very, very soon. If you are interested in participating and joining that subcommittee, again, you're going to want to stop by the table. Please leave your contact information. And then we also have the Removing Barriers to Affordable Housing Development and Preservation Subcommittee, which helps recommend changes to the city's development code to make it easier to build and preserve affordable housing. Commissioner Alanis is co-chair of that subcommittee, and he was here today. He's also a SHIP partner. And last but certainly not least is the Public Engagement Subcommittee, which focuses on effectively engaging impacted communities in housing policy and programs. Commissioner Abraham Brazier has for me, please. He chaired that subcommittee, as we heard earlier, and I want to note that this subcommittee also includes a lot of volunteer work from extremely hardworking community members. It's a great space to learn more about upcoming housing events and programs, and the members of this group are very instrumental in organizing and promoting today's event. So if you see them, please give them a shout out. And we would like to take this opportunity again, if y'all will please raise your claps, your applause, and your cheers for everyone from the PEO, is Monty Bell, along with Tiffany that helped put this event together and get the word. Now, you don't have to join a subcommittee to know what's happening. There's information about the SHIP and all of our work updated quarterly at our website, available 24/7. And in closing, I just want to say to all of you again, thank you so much for joining us today. You could have spent your Saturday anywhere, but you chose to spend it here with us, giving us your feedback, having conversations, and letting us know what you're experiencing, as well as coming and getting the resources that can better assist and help you and your community hosts. So we want to thank you all again, and we look forward to learning from you and working with you in 2022. Thank you so much.
Nikki, thank you so much. You are an inspiration to all of us.
I do want to introduce one last person who is here to share some words today, and that is Councilwoman from District 4, Adriana Rocha Garcia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to say thank you all. Apparently, you all have had an incredible event, a successful event. Thank you, more importantly, for the work that you do every day in and out to make sure that our residents in San Antonio have a great place to live. We'll continue to work together, and let's make sure that we engage others to help us in this space and work together and make sure that our community is well represented at all levels of housing, because every level of housing is needed. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your weekend.
cafeteria is open until 2 p.m. There's still some resource tables that are there. Remember that there are some wonderful displays that are available to talk about how we're defining affordability. More information about the Department of Neighborhood and Housing Services, it can be found at sa.gov/NHSD. Thank you all so much, and thank you to Sam Houston High School. Thank you to the wonderful interpreters.